Hi, how's it going? Look, it took long enough to make that video that I thought let's recycle it a wee bit and see the crack. Welcome in Irish NFL show. It is the Monday after the draft, Monday the 2nd of May. It feels like the 2nd of December because this last weekend's been nuts. Michael McQuaid, Colin Cronin, Brian O'Leary, you're going to have a few guests on tonight as well. First off, Colin, could you?
Delighted that the NFL managed to make it a bank holiday weekend to follow up on the draft, I think, which made life a little bit easier for all of us following on from Thursday night, Friday mornings festivities. But a really intriguing few days, especially with the trades, I suppose, that we saw played out, and I'm sure we get into that discussion. And we have a big suspension as well this evening. And we also have the fact that there are now two Irish guys currently with NFL teams. Plenty to discuss.
And we have a guest coming on in just a few seconds. Brian, busy weekend. How are you?
I'm good. Yeah, it was a busy weekend. I suppose after the first round, it was interesting to see what direction the teams went in the second round. And I'm sure we're going to get into it in more detail, during the show. But after all the talk of the quarterbacks last week and, potentially Ritter and Howell potentially coming in as a late first, maybe early second, and the Malik Willis being, potentially the number one quarterback to go off the board, none of that materialized. I mean, there was no quarterback selected in the second round and only one in the first round. Malik Willis didn't go to the third, and many others thereafter. And some of the teams who we thought would take a quarterback took them, but they didn't have to take them until later in the draft. So that's where we're going to get into it. And yeah, the breaking news, obviously, about Deandre Hopkins is something that we'll have to. I didn't think we'd be discussing that tonight.
Yeah, there's a lot to get into before the Coronation Street Affairs City Omnibus starts at 11 o'clock. We're delighted to bring in our first guest tonight. Look, from Houston, Texas, he speaks on Sports Radio 610 every weekday about the Houston Texans and the NFL. Sean Pendergast. Sean, a very, very warm welcome back to the show. Can you hear us okay? And can we hear you use the big test to start us off? We can't hear you, and this is the joy of it going live. We can't hear you. Do you have headphones or anything that you can put on? And we'll try it.
He has the AirPods.
Try if you want to try your settings, Sean, just while we're here, and we will see. Just while we're chatting to Sean, just waiting, Sean, I'll give you a wee shout in the chat, Sean. It was an interesting draft for the Texans, Colin, who got their man at number 3, wasn't it?
Yeah, we had discussed it, and I suppose he had risen back up the draft boards. What was interesting, I think, in the first kind of few picks was the way in which obviously Trayvon Walker rise up the draft boards. And yeah, there were some people who probably had him high. I don't know whether anyone had him number 1 overall prior to March of 2022. But Stingley is an interesting one because he's a player who we discussed had one of the great quarterback seasons in college football history in 2019, and then has been dealing with the issues, I suppose, at LSU and at injuries. So fingers crossed that we will now be able to discuss that with Sean.
Can you guys hear me now? I got rid of the AirPods. Am I good now?
You're back in business, Sean.
I'm back in business,
Sean.
Yeah. Technology.
Sean, first off, how's it going? Because, for us, busy weekend, obviously reporting on the draft, watching the draft. We had a live show during the first round. I know for you, in the current situation the Texans are in, it's there's so much changing in Houston. It's an enjoyable weekend, but also it was a good weekend for the Texans, yeah?
Yeah, really good weekend. Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. I know we tried to get it nailed down during day 1 of the draft last week, but I'm in the weird spot now with the Texans actually having first-round picks. The last 2 years, I could have done the whole show with you on day 1 because the Texans didn't have any first-round picks. Now, between their own performance and the Deshaun Watson trade, they've got plenty of first-round capital the next few years. I'll tell you what, guys, this is the first time probably since the playoff win over Buffalo back in the 2019 season that there's been hope in Houston. I mean, if you think about what's gone down since then, the following week, they blow a 24-0 lead to the Kansas City Chiefs. 2 months later, they trade Deandre Hopkins for nothing. And then, then 5 months later, Bill O'Brien is fired. The salary cap's a mess. He traded all the first-round picks. Jack Easterby's in the building. They hired David Culley. Like, it's been just a circus for a couple of years. This was the first weekend that the interaction with Texan fans for me was really, really positive across the board. Because I think the big thing, we'll see how this class works out. It's going to be really hard for them to mess up this class, given how many picks they had and how high they were picking. But I think there's just this feeling like, okay, there's an adult running things now in Nick Caserio. This guy, you watch him operate this weekend. This is clearly a general manager that he's been to the circus. He's seen the strings. He knows how it works, and he's doing things sensibly. So I think there's just a feeling of calm now that the organization is actually being well run for a change.
And Sean, I suppose with that number 3 pick, there was a lot of talk in the lead up to it, especially in kind of the weeks beforehand. As we got closer and closer to Thursday night, it seemed like Stingley was almost the kind of consensus pick. But can you talk to us a little bit about like what you were hearing or what the thought process of the Texans in terms of deciding on Stingley was?
Yeah, Nick Caserio does a really, really good job of keeping his cards close to the vest. I think we all learned that over the last month or so. Look, we have him, Seth Payne, my co-host tonight, we have Nick on our show every few weeks, for a half hour at a time. And it's like the jaws of life sometimes to get really good information extracted from him. He gives you good stuff as far as his thought process, but as far as like letting you know, like, I'm leaning towards this guy, we really like that guy, he's pretty close to the vest with that sort of information. So Stingley was a guy who got a lot of late steam, a lot of reports with Stingley. That was kind of a last minute sort of thing. I think a lot of us assumed throughout the process, one, that he wanted to trade back. And he was very clear about that, both on our show and in his press conferences. There were no takers for the 3rd overall pick. And I think we saw that play out with the quarterback market. Nobody's moving up to get these quarterbacks. They're waiting until the end of day 2 to get these quarterbacks. So once he couldn't trade back, then the speculation began. I think Ike Ekwonu was the guy that a lot of folks thought it would be for most of the process leading up to the last week. And then Stingley just picked up a lot of late steam. I think if you look at it's an interesting marriage, guys, Caserio and Lovie Smith, because they come from 2 very different backgrounds philosophically when it comes to defense. Caserio comes from that Belichick tree, it's a lot of man coverage. Lovie's all that Tampa 2, a lot of zone. I think what we saw throughout this process is that this is going to be kind of a hybrid of things. And the Stingley pick, Lovie's never been part of a team that's picked a cornerback even in the 1st round, let alone with the 3rd overall pick. So I think it's an indicator that they are going for guys they're going best player available. They're not, it's not scheme dependent at this stage. They need so much stuff that they're just going to get the best players they possibly can, get them in the building, and then figure the rest out later. And I think Stingley fits that. If you're checking off boxes of physical talent, it's hard to find a guy in this draft that checks more boxes when he's healthy than Derek Stingley Jr.
Sean, you touched on Ike Ekwonu there, and a lot of scouts and a lot of mock drafts leading up to the draft had the Texans going with an offensive line at 3. They came around again at 15, haven't traded down to go offensive line. At that stage, when we were doing the show, we felt potentially they might look at Kyle Hamilton. But obviously he went ahead of them to Baltimore because he arguably was best player available at that stage.
Yeah. I was hoping they'd pick Kyle Hamilton. I'm a Notre Dame grad, so I was hoping they'd take Kyle Hamilton. I also think he's a great player too. But I think the draft party that I was at that first night, there were probably about 5,000 Texan fans at that party. They were all hoping for Kyle Hamilton too. An interior offensive lineman isn't kind of the real sexy pick. Now, Kenyon Green is from the Houston area, and he played at Texas A&M. So there's plenty of that home cooking when it came to the pick. And I think once people sat and watched this kid play offense, play guard for the, in the SEC, and they watched how he moved people, you can go, okay. I mean, look, interior offensive line was a need for the Texans. You could argue it still is a need for the Texans. It's not like Green solves all their problems. But yeah, Kyle Hamilton, I think, would have been the pick if we were doing sort of like an in-the-moment poll, like a rapid-fire poll of Texan fans as they were sitting there, at 13 before they moved back to 15. Then they would have wanted Kyle Hamilton. Now that said, I think Green makes a lot of sense. And if you guys watch kind of I don't know how closely you followed the 5th-year option pickups today by teams, but the Texans picked up Titus Howard's 5th-year option, the right tackle they drafted back in 2019, who they've been shuffling back and forth between right tackle and left guard pretty much his whole career, which has just been a mess for him personally. And by proxy for the team, it's been a mess. I think drafting Green was the first move to sort of solidifying this line. They got Laramie Tunsil coming back. They kind of reworked his contract. He's locked in for 2 more years. You draft Green. He's your day one starter at left guard. Now you take Titus Howard and you move him back to right tackle, and you can feel better about exercising his 5th-year option because you don't want to pay $13 million to a guy who's bad at left guard. You rather pay $13 million to a guy who's good, decent, not great, but decent with some upside at right tackle. So they've done a good job. That Green pick was big, I think, in terms of just solidifying the whole thing up front.
Green played in 3 different positions across the line last year, Sean. So there's versatility there. And twice during the season, he was player of the week in the SEC.
They like the versatility. That's come back to bite them at times, though, with young players when they've come in. I think back to Xavier Suafilo, who they drafted back in 2014 with a high pick. They were moving him all over the place. He's a 2nd-round pick. They did it with Titus Howard, like I just said. My hope, guys, is that they find a home for Kenyon Green early on in camp. Kid, just focus here. You focus on busting that mouth in front of you right there. Move, guys.
Sean, we'll try and get another quick round in. And just for anyone watching this live on YouTube or Facebook, you can comment. We can get your comments on the screen. Any Texans questions, feel free to get them in. The last Wembley game I was at, Sean, for the Texans, or for Wembley games in general until this year, was the classic between the Jaguars and the Texans in 2019. Great game. Looking back now, so much has changed since in the NFL. Any rumours this year? It seems to be very quiet in the Texans front. Obviously, Jaguars going to be playing over, but it looks like it's going to be a year to miss for the Texans.
You talking about any rumors of them traveling overseas to games?
Yeah, just London, Munich, Mexico. Have you heard anything? Or
it's funny. It's funny you bring that up because I was reading Peter King's column just before I got on with you guys, and he had the list. I guess there's 5 international games, 3 in England, 1 in Mexico, and 1 in Germany this year. And it looks like the host teams for 4 of the 5 games are NFC teams that the Texans don't play. So the only chance it would be that Jags game, over there. Boy, I would hate to subject all the folks over on that side of the pond to a Jags-Texans game. That would be among our worst exports that we could send out of our country here to folks over there. But I've not heard anything to that effect of the Texans playing overseas. No. So you won't get an up close look at the Davis Mills John Mechie connection.
I'm absolutely devastated. I'm going to have to fly over myself and check it out.
Well, I suppose piggybacking on the Davis Mills side of things, I think we had you on last year, and the way he ended the season, I mean, it was certainly better than if you were to look at his stats. Was it 3 or 4 games over 300 yards passing? As somebody who had Drew Lock in situ for 3 years, he never even got to that number. So,
yeah.
And if you compare him to now, not to say that he's absolutely the guy, but surely and it does seem to be the case, but as somebody on the ground, like, talk to us a little bit about going into year 2, what the expectations are for Davis.
Well, they're treating him like the starter. When Lovie Smith gets asked about Davis Mills, Davis is our guy. Davis is our starting quarterback. This isn't a case of a rookie who struggled for 6 games, sat for a while, then looked pretty good in 5 games and going, okay, we're going to bring him back in. He's got to earn his job all over again. He is the starting quarterback for this team. So I like that they're treating it that way because, frankly, there's nobody else on the roster who it's at this stage of the Texans rebuild, it's worth wasting time with in a quarterback competition. If now Davis Mills stinks in training camp, then don't play him. But I don't think he will. The things I noticed about Davis Mills in training camp last year was he, and I think this is a big reason why he was better the last 5 games than he was the first 6 games. He's a pretty quick study. Like, he doesn't make a lot of the same mistakes over and over again. When he would have a bad day at practice in July and August doing certain things, he would come back the next day and he would not do those things, and that's, for a rookie quarterback, that's not always the case. So he was a pretty quick study. I'm kind of optimistic about how he'll do this year. It's a really tough schedule for the Texans. I mean, look, they're one of the worst teams in football, so every game's going to be tough. So for me to say it's a tough schedule makes it sound like, they might be 10-7 or 7-10. They're going to win like 5 games this year if they're lucky. They're going to be a much younger team. They may be a more talented team this year than last year, but they're going to be a much younger team this year than last year with a harder schedule. As far as Mills goes, I think it's going to really benefit him that the running game is, I would hope, going to be better, only because I don't think it can be any worse than it was last year. Of course, I said that coming off of 2020, and it was even worse in 2021. But I think drafting Dameon Pierce out of Florida, some of that solidification along the offensive line that we talked about, Pep Hamilton, now the offensive coordinator, not Bill O'Brien, disciple Tim Kelly, I think is going to help. Pep is a guy who really accentuates the run game in his scheme. So I think if Mills gets a competent run game, they got him another weapon in the slot with Mechie. He's got another year with Nico Collins. Brandon Cooks is locked in on an extension now. So I think they've done some things to improve the group around him. It's just a question now of him being able to get into Pep Hamilton's playbook, make that normal year 1 to year 2 jump, and adjust to being the unquestioned guy heading into the season, as opposed to a rookie who's off of everybody's radar. Not like Davis Mills is a guy like, well, now we got film on Davis Mills. Like you say that about a guy like Lamar Jackson, right, who's just this unicorn. But the fact of the matter is they do have film on Davis Mills now. They do know what his tendencies are. So I'm optimistic. You look at a lot of the numbers for him last year in those last 5 games. The first 6 are what they were. But the last 5 starts of the year where he won a couple games and had a few 300 yards games, like you guys said, his efficiency numbers were really good. He was really good on third down. Top passer rating in the red zone last year in that period of time. Top efficiency, I think, among the top, throwing the deep ball. So there's lots to like about what he did down the stretch last year. I don't know if he's going to be the guy long term. At the very least, guys, his performance last year prevented the Texans from reaching on one of these quarterbacks in this draft. And that's a win as far as I'm concerned.
Sean, at the end of last season, a large amount of fans across the league probably assumed that Brandon Cooks would be traded, and he signed the contract. And I think what we saw the other day really that they recognise his commitment to the team and how good he can be, because Mechie coming in from Alabama, I think that's actually a huge pick in the second round. It gives them the opportunity to it's no more double coverage for Cooks if he's on the other side and causing trouble. And again, as you touched on, giving the quarterback proper weapons to go with.
Yeah, Cooks is a guy they really want to have in the building. Cooks is a high character guy, good chemistry guy, good culture guy, team guy, and he's a really good player too. That helps. I mean, you can be the greatest guy in the world, but if you stink at football, they're not going to keep you around, I would think. But Cooks Cooks has been very productive. I think we've been pleasantly surprised by how durable he's been, given that when they traded for him, part of the reason he got traded was because he started having concussion issues his last year with the Rams. So I think we've been pleasantly surprised that by and large, he's been on the field pretty much every game. He missed a game because of COVID last year. But he's huge for this team. That's why they extended him, and I think they feel like they got a pretty good deal with that extension. When you look at some of the numbers that some of these receivers are starting to get, 29, 30 million. And I'm not saying Cooks is on the level of Devontae Adams, but he's very, very good. I think the biggest thing about Cooks is doesn't matter who your quarterback is, you can pencil him in at the beginning of the year for 11 or 1,200 yards, 7 touchdowns. You know what you're getting. So they got him on that extension for about $18 million a year. I think what he brings behind the scenes and what he brings on the field. And yeah, now adding Mechie in the slot, if he can do some of the things he did at Alabama with yards after the catch, I'm not saying it's a good offense, but it's definitely a much more interesting offense. But absolutely, Cooks is a real vital part of the rebuild they're trying to kind of execute here over the next couple of years.
It's a really interesting time for the Texans, Sean, and we just want to thank you for coming on. And I know, please God, now over the season, I'm sure the Texans will have a few, maybe the odd Thursday night game the first half of the season at least. So looking forward to chatting to you again, maybe from NRG Stadium again. Good times.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But no, look, just obviously enjoy the next few months. It's an exciting time. I really like Lovie Smith and really appreciate you coming on. For everyone watching this, at Sean T. Pendergast on Twitter. And Sean, really appreciate your support, man. Honestly, thank you so much.
Appreciate you guys. Anytime you need me, give me a shout. And you got a Deandre Hopkins suspension to talk about now. These former Texans are all still big topics in the city of Houston. We're going to talk about Watson, Hopkins, you rattle them all off. J.J. Watt, all of them. They're all still big topics here in Houston. So I appreciate you guys having me on. Anytime you want to chat, give me a shout. Keep up the great work.
Thanks very much, Sean.
Thank you, Sean.
All right.
All the best, man.
Take it easy.
Bye-bye.
See you guys later.
Oh, I hear I never cut people off saying goodbye. Thanks so much, Sean, for coming on. Lads, I need to say something very quickly before we start off the show properly. Irish NFL Show Draft Review Special. Thank you, folks, for watching us on Facebook, WhatsApp, etc. Presented by Trust Gaming. Trust is the right gaming gear for any gamer and any budget. You can check out trust.com, or if you search Trust Gaming on Instagram for more information on different products Trust has. We're also presented by Mini Arcade Systems. They have the highest quality machines in Ireland, and we look forward to doing a show from there quite soon. Apparently, there's some breaking news on the week that all the games are being announced. And finally, we're presented by the Aer Lingus College Football Classic. Tickets for Northwestern against Nebraska are now on sale. Colin, did you get me tickets? Yeah, last week.
Yeah, but we'll be sitting up in the gods, given that you and me are working in education and on our budget, Michael.
Well, here, very quickly, can we just thank everyone, lads, for using our code last week? I think it was IE Show 22. Unbelievable. Thank you so much, folks. That really helps us and it helps the game in Ireland as well. So we really appreciate it as well. There's a couple of comments here, boys. Declan saying the Owl MacBook mic settings. And then Kieran saying, big fan of the show. Really impressed with what you do. Spread the word of the NFL in Ireland. Kieran in North Florida. Kieran, thank you very much. Thomas spreading the word. Brian, I know you want to jump in. I'll let you go next. PEDs. Do you want to explain to the world what's going on with the Arizona Cardinals before our next guest comes on? And maybe your own opinion as well?
I actually haven't had an opportunity to fully read into it because it's only broken the last hour, but I believe Deandre Hopkins has been suspended for the first 6 games of next season because he took a substance that wasn't within the laws of the league. Would that be accurate?
I can read it out here now. So from ESPN, Temple, Arizona, Josh Weinfuss, I think is going to come on this week onto the show. Arizona Cardinals star wide receiver Deandre Hopkins has been suspended 6 games for violating the NFL's policy on performance-enhancing drugs. The suspension comes 4 days after the Cardinals traded their first-round pick to the Ravens for Marquise Brown. Hopkins will be allowed to play in the preseason, and then he will miss. He'll miss 6 games. He'll not be playing to week 7. That's shocking, Colin.
Yeah, big loss for the Cardinals. I suppose the details will come out in time, and you never know. I do remember there were a number of players, Will Fuller, and others who a couple of years ago got suspended, and at the time said they were going to sue their doctor, but that lawsuit is still being waiting to file. DeAndre Hopkins was a vaccine skeptic, but it would appear he put some other substances into his body. I guess we shall see. For the Cards, this probably helps maybe explain the trade in terms of getting Hollywood Brown in there, because they likely knew that this was coming. But it's a huge loss for them. I mean, look, Hopkins, you can argue over like the order, but he is one of the absolute top receivers in the league. His ability to go up and get the ball, to find space, and to get yards after the catch, he is so tricky. He is a nightmare to cover, and to be without him for 6 games in one of the toughest divisions, certainly I would argue that the toughest division in the NFC, that's a huge loss for the Cards.
It's no coincidence that their form towards the second part of the season last year. I know you joked here, Michael, during the show. Cards 7-0. It seems like that's what they do with most seasons. They start fast and finish with a whimper. And he was missing for quite a few games the back end of the season last year. And then when he did come back, he was still carrying that injury. And it's consistent with how that offense dropped off. Just on Hollywood Brown, yeah, I think Colin was hitting the nail on the head. They knew this was coming because, in fact, Hollywood Brown joined the Cardinals after party about an hour after the trade, so he was already in Arizona, and the word is they knew this deal was taking place. It was just a case of when it was going to be announced on the evening, so not before the draft as opposed to during the draft when we got the news. But he was there, joined the party, so straight away they knew about this trade the day before, and yeah, they're gone for a speedster wide receiver to get in with some similarities to the way Hopkins would go about his play. But big loss, 7 games into a season, got to start fast in the NFL. Yes, fine. We see teams coming to back end of the season with a run and going to the playoffs. But in a division that's only going to be more competitive next season, with the 49ers looking to come go with their new quarterback, and the Rams obviously off a Super Bowl. They've got a difficult road ahead of them now.
Let's I know we got a guest coming on in 5 minutes. See, yes. Yeah. And we'll disclose his name in due course. Let's look at the draft, lads. Obviously, we were live on Thursday night. Going through each of the first round picks. I sat religiously while doing work all weekend watching the rest of the draft. Statistically, the Patriots are 32nd. And I know I think Colin, you said this earlier on, it's not one on the draft board, but some interesting picks there. What the hell were they doing with that first round pick?
Yeah, look, that's probably the biggest head scratcher, and I think we have all seen the Rams reaction video. If you haven't, then it's probably worth your while taking the 12 seconds or so to watch it. I get, like, if you believe in a guy, I get taking him, but given where he was on everyone's draft boards, would you not have been better placed to draft or to look to move back, or to even, he's probably there with your second pick? I know if you really want him. I mean, it's tough to know. If the Rams thought he was going to be there potentially at 104, for the Patriots to take him in the 20s, it does seem like a reach. But look, I draft grades, to me, they don't. I love the something of the speculation, not as much as Mr. O'Leary for the draft, but I do like the speculation and the build up to it. I think afterwards, though, I've seen draft classes that have been hailed and gone on to absolutely flop equally. I have seen picks maybe that have been absolutely trounced go on to be enormous contributors. It's fun to talk about, but essentially we're talking about potential. We're talking about guys transitioning into the league. Nobody knows what that is going to look like. I talk about it repeatedly. These guys have been the best player, very likely, or one of the best players on their team since they've been a superstar in like pee-wee football, in high school, in college, and all of a sudden they go in and everybody is almost of an equal standard. That is very difficult to get used to. Yep.
Just before the guest comes in, well, I've got some breaking news, but we'll leave it to the end of the show. Don't worry. Sorry, and Colin, I'm going to forget about this. Brian, now, I grew up a young Christian man and was engrossed in my faith. Still am engrossed in my faith. And in Revelations, it talks about like the Messiah coming, and that's my belief in life. Hopefully, someday I know what the answer is going to be. Now, the other night, the Giants drafted Kevin Thibodeau at 5, and we're still here. The world hasn't ended yet. So can you tell me what's going on in New York? In all seriousness, you must be a very happy man. And I love that guy that announced the picks. That lad was class.
Sam Prince.
He
was the
next GM of the team or do something. But yeah, class.
I can understand the fact that he hasn't played a game in the NFL, but when you've been watching Giants football for the past 6 or 7 years, and how disappointing it's been, and how disappointing it's been to see really good players traded out. I'd argue the last time we had really decent edge rushers was OC, JPP, Jason Pierre-Paul has gone on to win another Super Bowl with the Bucs, and you probably even go back a little bit to Strahan. So to see someone who a lot of people felt would go first and probably be definitely gone by 4 to drop a 5, and for a new GM who's under pressure to reconstruct the team, to be in a position where you could, because the priority was obviously offensive line for the Giants. Like, that's been very clear and evident from day one. Colin said last week the most fixed thing in the top 10 is the Giants are going to take an offensive line. So for the Giants to be in a position to get their number one offensive line guy at 7 that they wanted, and to get Thibodeau at 5. There's some question marks around Kayvon Thibodeau about his demeanor and his manner and stuff he likes to do off the field. But I think all that will get washed away come September. And it's been a while since New York has had a kind of a character. And I think they've got 2 characters this week, because Sauce Gardner is going to mop up all those marketing deals with Big Apple Sauce in New York. And Kayvon is the kind of guy that will come in and remind me of Strahan. And it's no coincidence that he's in with Strahan, shall we say, as his bosom buddy. I just want to jump back before we bring our guest on. I didn't realize Sean McVay had won 6 Super Bowl titles, and Bill Belichick had only won 1. So to see him chucking away, probably the greatest ever head coach, was a bit disingenuous for me. But anyway, Sean McVay is obviously still on a high since February. It's a scheme pick for the Patriots as opposed to the best player available. But anyway, Sean McVay, yeah.
Sean McVay made my Friday morning exciting. I'm sorry.
Don't get me wrong. I enjoyed it. I chuckled at it myself. But in the light of day, I think it's unfair to be mocking one of the greatest, if not the greatest ever head coach in the NFL.
You're talking about the New York Giants, lads. They may be going to London this year. Who knows what's going to happen? We'll have a schedule release show this week. The Denver Broncos are going to London. It's just been announced by Fox in Denver. They're playing the Jaguars. We'll talk about that during the week. One team that is going to London is the Packers. And we'll find out who they're playing either right now or hopefully probably on Wednesday, just to be honest. Matt Schneidman, Matt, it's an honor to have you back on the show again. Thank you very much. How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Just counting down the days to this Packers game now, so it's good. We were talking to Mark Murphy a few weeks ago, and people over here are obviously not even if you're a Packers fan, they're just buzzing to see this game in the next few months.
Yeah, I think I don't know who they're going to play, but we'll find out Wednesday. My thinking is it's going to be the Giants or the Jets because every other team on the Packers schedule seems like a candidate for a Sunday, Monday, or Sunday afternoon primetime game. Or I should say Sunday night, Monday night, or Sunday afternoon primetime game because of the types of opponents they're facing. Cowboys, Patriots. I could go on and on. But so Giants or Jets would be my guess.
I suppose looking at the draft, I never thought the Packers were going wide receiver in the first round. I said it repeatedly. It never made it. It didn't seem like something that the team does. Is it 2 decades? Is it longer than since they went wide receiver in the first? What were your thoughts? Were the feeling on the ground in Green Bay? I know Andrew Brandt was tweeting earlier about the boos he heard when they obviously made the Aaron Rodgers pick. But what's the feeling in Green Bay about the first round picks?
Yeah, I wasn't surprised that they didn't go wide receiver. For them, the run on the top wide receivers went too early in the first round, with Drake London going 8th and then 10, 11, 12 being Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave, and Jameson Williams. I guess they just didn't feel that it was worth it trading up that far and giving up significant draft capital to go up and get one of those guys. And they ended up trading up 19 spots on day 2 to get a guy they really like in Christian Watson, a guy that's going to have to come in and right away and be a significant weapon for Aaron Rodgers. I think the 2 guys they got on day 1, it's never a bad strategy to just draft 2 guys from one of the best defenses in college football history. Quay Walker the thing about both of these guys, Quay Walker and Devontae Wyatt, they don't have to come in and be the guy at their position groups right away. There's a little more pressure on Christian Watson, even though he's a second-round pick. Quay Walker gets to come in with Devondre Campbell. The reason the Packers like Quay Walker is because it gives them the flexibility to, have 2 inside linebackers on the field at the same time who they feel can stop the run and defend against the pass. They haven't had that in a long time, is what Brian Gutekunst said. It gives them a little more positional versatility, keeps opponents guessing. If they have 2 inside linebackers on the field, normally that means, we're stopping the run. If they have 5 defensive backs on the field, it means, we're gearing up to stop the pass. So opponents can kind of, know what the Packers are gearing up to do. Now, if they have 2 versatile inside linebackers in Quay Walker and Devondre Campbell, gives them a little bit more freedom to do different things on defense and also keeps other offenses guessing. And Devontae Wyatt, at some point, I would think the Packers hope he's their number 2 defensive lineman. Kenny Clark's obviously the guy on that line, but the Packers have been really bad rushing the passer from the interior and also really bad stopping the run. They were 30th in the league in yards allowed per rush with 4.7 last year. A couple other advanced metrics have them worst in the league defending against the run. So they needed another guy that explosive on their defensive line. And their defense right now looks really, really good on paper.
Matt, the second wide receiver that they selected in the 4th round, Romeo Jules from Nevada, he looks like a real explosive, stretched field kind of player, having looked at the highlights. I mean, that's something Devontae Adams did a lot last season. And Watson was ranked 4th round. We had Sam Monson, Pro Football Folks, and he actually said Watson would be the best fit for the Packers. So they get 2 wide receivers, greater flexibility next season going forward.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, that's a really crowded room now. And Brian Gutekunst said he just wanted to create more competition there. But it shows you that this training camp is going to be extremely interesting when they're trying to narrow down that room to 6 or 7 guys. Maybe you're going to need those bottom of that depth chart guys to influence special teams. I would say the roster locks at that position are Allen Lazard, Randall Cobb, Amari Rodgers, and Christian Watson. Sammy Watkins, we'll see how he does in camp, but his contract indicates that he's by no means a roster lock. Romeo Doubs had a lot of return experience at Nevada, so maybe he makes the team. I would assume a 4th-round pick is a lock to make the team, but what strengthens his case if he's not a lock is that he was a really good returner at Nevada, and the Packers need a really good returner to kind of revamp their special teams. Interesting note about Samori Toure, their 7th-round pick out of Nebraska, who spent the first couple of years of his college career at Montana. He led the Big Ten in yards per catch, 19.5. Matt LaFleur told us at owners' meetings 2 months ago now. I kept saying last month, but it's May now, that he needed a guy who had speed to take the top off a defense in his wide receiver room. They have probably 4 of those now since he said that. Sammy Watkins, if he still has those wheels that he used to, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, and Toure. So it'll be interesting to see the competition at the bottom of that room, whether it pushes out guys who have been here like Juwan Winfrey and Malik Taylor. But special teams ability when it comes to those 5th, 6th, 7th spots is certainly going to be important.
Even past the 7th spot, Matt, Packers signing 14 undrafted free agents today. Is there anybody that stands out there for you, or do you think any of them have a realistic chance of maybe challenging to get on the final roster this season?
It's always so tough. I mean, these guys are just names right now. We know about them, but not really what the team thinks of them because we don't talk to anybody about them until this week at rookie minicamp. Packers will have, I believe, media availability on Friday when we should be able to watch practice. So I'll have an answer for you then, since I've never seen any of those guys play. But, the thing that's interesting about rookie minicamp is, yeah, there are still, I guess now there's 1 roster spot open. They have 89 guys on the roster now before they sign draft picks and before Allen Lazard signs his RFA tender. But you look at a guy like Lucas Patrick in 2019 who came to rookie camp as just a tryout player. They hadn't even signed him yet. And he develops into one of Aaron Rodgers' most reliable linemen. Like Chris Barnes was an undrafted free agent. He turned into a nice player, although I'd assume he won't see many snaps because they drafted Quay Walker. So there's always 1 or 2 guys in that bunch who turn into something. It's just like trying to find a needle in a haystack right now for who those guys might be.
Matt, you've been with us 10 minutes and we haven't mentioned your night before draft day poem, which was fantastic reading last week. But also the Packers are coming to London, but there's another type of football coming to Lambeau. It's all about the internationalization of things in Green Bay.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be an idiot and say soccer because that's what I've called it my whole life. But football, I'm a big football fan, American and the actual football. So I'm really excited to go to that. I'm definitely going to get tickets. I just want to know if like the main guys from each team are going to play or if they're going to be resting it. When is it?
What date is the game?
It's July 23rd at 6 p.m. Central Time.
Usually it wouldn't be the case, lads, but with the World Cup being at Christmas and the Premier League starts early.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, the Man City could put their 3rd team out and you'd be happy enough to worry. I mean, there's that many players.
I know, but I know, De Bruyne and Sterling and Jesus are probably not going to be playing, but I would like to see at least
it's much more likely than a preseason that you'll see the starters much more so than in an NFL preseason game.
Definitely.
And you might get 45 minutes out of them at least, rather than
I'll take that.
The 4 snaps that Aaron Rodgers takes in preseason.
Right. No, but I'm excited. I think it's the first ever football match at Lambeau Field. So I'll definitely be buying tickets when they go on sale, I think later this week.
Brian, you're on mute. He's still too excited from the Giants picks for the weekend.
I'm back. Man, what I was saying was, this is the first time you've been on and we haven't grilled you about Aaron Rodgers, so I have to start there. There was a bit of a report last week where he suggested he wasn't aware of the Devontae Adams trade when he signed the contract. From your links, do you buy into that? Do you think it was one of those situations? We all felt that he would have been made aware of that when he was signing the contract, but he seemed to indicate last week that wasn't the case.
Yeah, I had reported the night of the trade that exactly what he said on the record on the Pat McAfee show the other day. He knew Devontae Adams was not happy and was upset with the organization and with his standing there and that he wanted out. But Rodgers thought that Adams would eventually come around to remaining in Green Bay because of what they were offering him, $28.5 million per year. Ultimately, it just came down to Devontae Adams wanting a change of scenery. I think there's also a chance the Packers contract offer financially, what he wanted, came along too late in the process, even though it did end up being more, in some aspects than what the Raiders gave. But I think Rodgers was under the assumption that the money would eventually get Devontae back to Green Bay, but ultimately he wanted to go back and play with Derek Carr.
It's interesting because from a fan's perspective, you feel that most players, with all they really want to do at the end of their careers, look back on a Super Bowl win. And like right now, and with all due respect to Raiders fans who do watch the show, realistically, his best chance of winning a Super Bowl would have been to remain in Green Bay. I know, and I understand the relationship with Carr, but we were all surprised because I felt he was kind of, playing his card very early to get that contract, and in the end they would, honor that and give him the contract and he'd stay. But that's not the case, and he probably couldn't miss out on a potential opportunity to go to a Super Bowl.
Right. I mean, that AFC West is loaded, and I think, we said the same thing when Aaron Rodgers was making his decision. Who knows if he ever really seriously weighed wanting to play somewhere else, but best chance to win one is in Green Bay. I know they've fallen short, but you'd certainly think it's a better chance than in Las Vegas. But hey, happiness is measured differently for different guys, and if he wants to play with his buddy and be closer to family out on the West Coast, then all the power to him.
Yes, all the power to him indeed. And look, Matt, we really appreciate you coming on. You're saying that you're a soccer fan, a football fan. You work with The Athletic, who've got unbelievable coverage over here.
Right.
We obviously, you got Ornstein and stuff. So would recommend anyone, at the end of the day, Matt's taking his time to come on here, and we really appreciate it, folks. If you do get a chance, go and check out The Athletic and maybe subscribe, because you can get soccer, Premier League, and the NFL. So it's great fun. And Matt, hopefully see you October 9th, October 16th, whenever. You're more than welcome to come on our show before you have to pick up your credential. It's literally opposite the stadium. And
oh, really? Yeah, no, I mean, I'll be there. I'll be in London, wherever it is. So I'll definitely stop by. Football was I didn't play American football, but soccer was my main sport in high school. So before I put down the cleats, the boots, whatever you want to call them, for a computer and a pen and pad, and started covering sports, I was a decent soccer player for one of the better teams in the state of Connecticut in high school.
We did a show last year at Tottenham facing the stadium on a rooftop, and without giving too much away, it's our intention to do that again this season. Awesome. And so hopefully we can get you on the show that morning.
Absolutely, let's do it.
Brian will sort you out a black cab, London style. It'll be fine.
If it is the Giants, I might have some foul language for you on the day, but we'll get through it.
Okay. You have my commitment to come on whenever I'm out there.
Great. Awesome. Matt, appreciate that, man. Massively. See you soon and enjoy the next few months. Can't wait till football starts again. Chat to you soon.
Good stuff. Thanks for having me again, guys.
Take it easy, Matt.
Thank you very much. Fantastic to speak to Matt. Really appreciate lads. Matt's the man that's obviously very supportive of the show, and we really appreciate it. We've seen some incredible support this weekend, and I think it's important to talk about this here, lads, because I know some people are watching as well, and it's something that is very important. 2 Irish lads signed as undrafted free agents with NFL teams over the weekend. The first one, Daniel Whalen, has signed with the New Orleans Saints. He signed about 20 minutes after the draft ended. It came out officially. So that's unbelievable. Daniel moved to America when he was 13 or 14, so it's a big moment. And another lad moved when he was 8, born in Dublin, James McCourt, who's signing with my team's rival, the LA Chargers. The thing, kickers or punters, lads, like they've honestly got a really good chance of challenging. Seeing Thomas Morstead was like in the tweet about Daniel Whalen and Jeff, etc. So I have to run 2 seconds. But however, Colin, I'm sure you'll agree as you boys start to talk about this. This is a massive moment for us because it's great to see the UK lads, especially with the NFL Academy, doing so well, but also to see local lads that take their chance. Lads that have moved to born in Ireland, moved to America, go through the system, and they're this step, like they're so close now to becoming the first active NFL player since 1985. It's fantastic, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, what you're talking about is the growth of the game internationally. And now, after a 37-year absence, we have 2 Irish guys in with a shot of making the roster. Both of them will have to compete and earn their spot, but I think both are in potentially with the shot. We know that the Chargers weren't too happy and obviously made a change at kicker last year. So the competition will be there. Obviously, the current incumbent has experience, but we shall see. But the league talked about this when at the international press conference. Damani talked about how they want to increase the international pathway program, how they would be opening that up to kickers and punters. So that may open up opportunities for guys from the island of Ireland. Also, the fact that we're now seeing, remember, these guys have come in, but there are others in the college system. So there is potentially a pipeline there. And obviously with Tide Leader heading across to the CFL, there's a real potential here, for somebody from the island to step foot and play regular season football, which is, I think, what we all want. And yeah, I mean, obviously, when there is a connection, it adds to it even that little bit extra. So I will put the AFC West rivalry aside and cheer on the Irishman to make the roster, both in with the Chargers and of course in New Orleans as well.
With the Saints, when I've delved into it as well in more detail over the past few days, and they feel from, if you read the reports, it's a very open competition on the punting situation. So again, similar to Colin's point around the Chargers and some inconsistencies of the kicker last year, there's some disgruntled Saints fans at the time around the punting situation last year. So he's going to get a fair opportunity to go in there. And look, the world is their oyster now because they've got an opportunity to go in there and compete for a position. And if it's not to be with that particular team, they might get another opportunity elsewhere within the league. We've seen many a player who ends up on another practice squad then be brought into the first team itself come to Sunday. So it's a great opportunity, and it's great to see, as Colin's alluded to see people from our own little country finally get an opportunity to go over there, because I think a lot of people who don't really fully understand how the process works, I would just assume it's always going to be Americans. But what we've seen over the past few years, we had Jakob Johnson on there last month on the show, who's signed for the Raiders from the Patriots. Classic example who's someone who's come through the international program and made his way in the career in the NFL. And we've seen an Austrian player, picked in the draft here today. It's great. It's fantastic to see players over there making great opportunities for themselves.
Yeah, and look, to both these lads, wish them the very, very best of luck. Like, I've put the Twitter and Instagram account socials. Follow these lads and join their journey. It's going to be an interesting few months, and we wish them the very, very best. And I it gives me something to watch during pre-season as well. Get some reps in. Looking forward to it. Daniel Whalen, James McCourt, lads, very, very best of luck.
I think we should also recognise Tyke Leader will be departing soon for Canada. He's going to be playing.
Gone.
He's gone. So he's going to be playing in the CFL this year. And we had Lawrence Tynes, who's originally from Scotland, who kicked the Giants to 2 Super Bowls on previously, and he said his time in the Canadian League was so crucial for him getting that opportunity in the NFL. So hopefully Tyke will also see the rewards for all the commitment he's put into the game over the past couple of years in the coming months.
I think after a couple of seasons in the CFL, please God, he's going to get what he deserves there as well. Just on what we were talking about there a second ago, just with the 2 lads, like, we're hoping to get, there's an open invitation, lads. You're more welcome to come on the show. Hoping to get Daniel's coach on, Aaron Perez from the Punt Factory. He was chatting to him yesterday. Looking forward to hopefully doing that there over the next few weeks and months, and just seeing this game develop even more. I can't tell you how happy I was when I seen NFL Network. with that tweet. And it was Mike F. I don't know his full name. He tweeted Rich Eisen, Peter Schrager, Daniel Jeremiah, and the lads. Unreal the weekend, and fair play to Rich Eisen for reading it out live on TV. Great crack.
Yeah, very good.
Just unreal. Like, I'm trying. I had something else in my head, boys. I can't remember what it was. But
I think it's the second year apparently that Mike has gotten a stump the truck tweet on there. So kudos to him for that. The other thing is that, just to say as well, like, we're seeing more international coaches in the league as well, and I think that makes a difference in terms of bringing players through. So it'll be very interesting to see how it continues to develop. But the league is committed to it, and you're seeing the fruits of that labor come to fruition.
I just want to,
as well.
The Senior Bowl, the Senior Bowl process kicks off in February, and I think it gets kind of missed by a lot of fans because it's obviously close to the end of the season in terms of everybody's so locked into the NFL. I think it's the week prior to Super Bowl. And we've had great support from Jim Nagy, who's been on. He was on our show last week before the draft. I was looking at the numbers this morning on the Senior Bowl because there has been people over the years that just really don't fully understand the merits of it. 106 players drafted. 82% of the players who went to the Senior Bowl were drafted. 45 in the first 3 rounds. 40% of the entire draft were players that went to the Senior Bowl for that week. So it just shows, again, the great work that Jim Nagy and the team do down there. And we were fortunate to have Penning on, who was picked up by the Saints. Again, he might have the opportunity to become good friends with Mr. Whalen if he gets the chance to stay in New Orleans. But again, I just think it was great to see the amount of players that go to the Senior Bowl and the great work that Jim Nagy and the team do down there.
Absolutely. Do we want to even sort of talk about a team each year, just about the draft before we?
Yeah, I've got one for you.
Okay, I'll go first very quickly, and I'm going to probably butcher his name. Ryman? No, Bernard Ryman. Going to the Colts. Congratulations! I watched his video last night of his reaction. His journey is unbelievable, and there's more proof of the growth of this game. And that's what I was going to say as well. Did anybody see the lad from Newton Lords making the pick for the Vikings?
Yeah.
Fair play. I had no idea. I literally said to him on Sunday, I was like, lad, if we would have said, we would have had a bit of crack with that there. But here, fair play. Big Vikings fan. And we'll maybe talk about the Vikings at the end of the show when we maybe predict who's going to be playing in London together in a minute. Colin, who stood out for you in the draft? Was it pick number 9 and Russell Wilson, or who was it?
The team that stood out for me, and I'm sure it'll raise a wry smile from Mr. O'Leary, but the Eagles. I mean, honestly, what they did was impressive. Whether you like them or not, Howie, I think, did the right thing in terms of going up there and getting AJ Brown. You have a young QB on a rookie contract. You don't know yet if he is going to be the guy, but you put weapons around him. So whether he's the guy or not, if you are looking for another QB in a year's time, which you still have ammo to get up and get, you still have AJ Brown for whoever comes in. If it isn't another rookie that you've gone up to get, Jordan Davis makes a lot of sense. We talked about it on the live show in terms of Fletcher Cox getting older, but the ability to have Fletcher Cox there for another year to ease Davis in. So I really think that they made a lot of sense. I had talked to Jim Nagy. Brian said about Cam Jurgens. I really like what he does at center. I think it makes a lot of sense in terms of if Kelsey gets injured or just bring him up behind. Nakobe Dean, he fell because of injury concerns. He says that he's good to go for rookie minicamp. He is a superstar. He was the brains of that Georgia defense. We talked about that Georgia defense being potentially the greatest college defense that there has been, and he was the guy who ran it. So, yeah, I really like what they did. Could it all fall flat in their face? Yes, that's what I talked about earlier. You never know how it will work out. But right now, when I look around, I really like what the Eagles did.
I have a good and a bad for you. The good is the Buffalo Bills. They addressed the cornerback in the first round, and there was a running back in the second round that they took, James Cook. It's Dalvin Cook's brother, and I don't know if you've had an opportunity to look at his highlight reel. And I know it's difficult now to say how good they'll be in the league. But bearing in mind the Bills, the offense last year, they haven't had a really proper running back. This guy looks like a really, really good player, and he's the kind of player I think that could push them on. And then they went for linebacker in the third round, again, another need. So I think the Bills, who are on the periphery already, have really done really well and addressed positions of need straight away. And the team, I'm not going to say they're not going to have a good season or anything, but I just don't get the Vikings' strategy in this draft, because they went from 12 to 32 to allow the Lions to move up to get Jameson Williams. But usually when you do, when someone jumps 20 spots, you're giving away a first-round pick next year. And that wasn't even in the deal. So I found that a little bit strange. I think they, for what they got back. And then they go into the second round in terms of the second day, having the Lions first pick of the next round. And then they jump back 19 spots to let the Packers move up. So there's always this thing around, I didn't see the value in the pick at that position, and that's why I traded down. But when you're trading from 12 to 32, you're allowing all those players to pass you by, and then you've done the exact same thing in the second round. I know there's a lot of Vikings fans that were asking the question of what's going on. So, but look, it's a new GM, and that's the difficulty with new GMs. 2 or 3 years down the line, he's going to be evaluated based on his draft picks, and it'll be interesting to see how he goes, because I know a lot of Vikings fans, 1 or 2 who spoke to me, just couldn't understand what was happening.
Big thanks to Matt Schneidman, who's retweeted the show. There's a lot of Packers fans watching this right now. So let's guess the London games, the Munich games, and you know what? Why not just guess the Mexico game as well? It's going to be announced on Wednesday afternoon at around 2, probably 2:30. It's going to be announced on Good Morning Football. So Brian, I know you'll be watching that, so I'm sure you'll be able to update us through that. There.
Are we guessing or are we suggesting? Because
let's go. Obviously, let's start with London, right? So we've got the Packers, we've got the Saints, and we've got the Jaguars. I'm going to guess, well, the Jaguars playing the Broncos. That's confirmed. Is there any point in me and Colin denying this anymore now? Which is great in Wembley on October the 30th. Apparently, it hasn't been confirmed. We have no affiliation with the NFL, etc. Vikings, Saints. A lot of talk about the Saints Bengals for a long time. They seem to be scared of that there. Vikings against the Saints. I personally go back in the last game. If Russell Wilson wasn't traded to the Broncos, it would have been the Cowboys 100% against the Jaguars or the Raiders. And finally, Packers against the Giants. I wanted to be the Giants for the crack, just to see Brian's face when the Packers beat the Giants beat the Packers in London. I genuinely meant to say the Giants first off.
I think if that was the case, you'd be concerned about your health that night, because you'd have to come on the razzle dazzle.
I'll be in the flight home. Don't worry about that. The one thing I will say is very quickly, the Jets obviously have the international home marketing agreement. They were in London at the weekend. They had a draft party. They announced a pick from London. Don't be surprised if it's the Jets with the NFC, AFC thing. But at the same time, if it's Saints, Vikings, that's NFC. So that rules out the window. Colin, do you want to give us different ideas? Who are the Jaguars playing?
Look, at this point, I think it's certainly the Jags Broncos has been confirmed. Television stations in Denver are saying it, and Benjamin Albright just tweeted to say that Broncos fans should check the weather in London town around Halloween. So that one is confirmed. I keep going back to it. The league would have set the international game back if it was the Saints against the Bengals in London. Fans in Louisiana would have been rightly absolutely livid to not have the opportunity to see Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, who had a historic season. And we talked about the Georgia and the historic defense, LSU, that historic offense. To have taken that away from Louisiana would have been idiotic. It would have been there aren't words for how much of a silly move. And I said it on this show before. I would have understood fans burning the Superdome to the ground if the league did it, because it would set it back. Fans in America, in New Orleans, would rightly say that is our game. Why are you taking that? Why are you taking us the opportunity to see Joe Burrow here? So I'm glad that they seem to have moved away from that. We'll get confirmation. If not, maybe things will get very interesting there. But I think that would be the right decision to have that game take place in Louisiana in the Superdome, and it will be a great occasion. It will be a true homecoming.
Just something we haven't touched on. No, I just want one more. We haven't. Before I get to that, we haven't touched on the news that came out this afternoon. Is that Honey Badger Tyrann Matthew is actually signing for the Saints, 3-year deal, $33 million, and LSU again. So he's gone back to play in his hometown essentially for where he's been for a number of years, and he'll be London bound. Yeah. On the other one, a lot of people feel it's going to be the Giants. That hasn't been confirmed, but we've spoke to a number of people who are slightly linked towards the Giants, and the indication is that the Giants are coming, but we haven't seen that fully confirmed. The reason why I don't think it'll be the Jets is because they were there last year, and I know they're very keen to get involved in the London team, but they were there last year. I think the league would like to see. They know that the fans that go to the games was to be a large contingent of Packers fans. They also want fans who want to see a number of teams, and I think inevitably it will be the Giants playing the Packers. And Matt picked on it earlier, the fact that you go through the games in which they have a home. They've got the Patriots at home, Cowboys at home, Titans, who were the number 1 seed last year. That's 1 seed against 1 seed, AFC, NFC. They're the type of games that the TV companies in America will be all over, and we'll see it fully confirmed Thursday week when the schedule's released. So it just seems to make so much sense for it to be the Giants. And obviously, as a Giants fan, I'm really hoping that is the case. And we get to see Kayvon, Michael.
We get to see Jesus wept the second coming of Christ. Let's look at Munich now. Good evening, Jer. Thank you very much for your comment, mate. He's doubting the Jets will be back against us soon. I agree, but I just have the feeling that Gang Green, the UK, are going to rise up, and I think we should stay on the show right now. Colin, if the Giants don't go now, Brian has to fly over to Lambeau for that game instead. Here, seriously though, that's the one game I'm not confident on. Munich was hilarious because I woke up this morning and seen Peter King's Football Morning in America article and leapt for joy when I seen the date. I have the flights booked, easy as. If anybody wants a flight on the Saturday, I don't need it anymore. You can change my name on the flight. You can have a column if you want. Brian has it. 13th of November. The flight home, boys, is going to be a great crack for Munich. Like, it'll be mad crack all day. You ever going to Munich and back. Bucks to the home team. Colin, Peter King said the Rams have asked the NFL. There is no way in God's green earth that the Rams are going to be playing that game in Munich. In the same way, I just can't see the Chiefs playing them now. But at the end of the day, if Derry could be thrown yesterday, boys, anything can happen. So you never know, all right? But I think Seattle, I actually done a bit of digging this weekend and seen how many fans, like they've got like hundreds of thousands of fans in Germany, like 100,000 fans at least. And that game will be like hotcakes regardless. But I'm going to say the Bucks against Seattle at 2:30 Ireland time, 3:30 local time on the 13th of November. And when the German national anthem goes off, I think it's going to be unbelievable. Colin, who have you got?
Well, I think that's probably the way in which it's going. I mean, when Peter King was on with us, he said he didn't think it would be the Chiefs because he expects them to be the home team in Germany very soon. So that he doesn't expect them to go over. The Seahawks probably make a lot of sense. He also pointed out that Tampa Bay's home schedule is ridiculous this year. So kind of any of the games that go over. But look, you have seen Pete Carroll, Snyder, and Joe Snyder learning German. You've seen all sorts of videos from the Seahawks in relation to Germany over the past kind of not 18 months. So I would almost go back. So maybe it will be Tom Brady versus Drew Lock, Baker Mayfield, Jimmy Garoppolo, a fan from the stand. Maybe it'll be a Homer Simpson type scenario, and they will pluck a random German fan who will play quarterback.
Random German fan. Hey, Brian, Jared's making a very, very good point. There was an article, and there is an article on NFL.com that does state that the games outside of Jacksonville will be NFC, AFC. If it's the Giants against the Packers, go Pack, go. That's NFC against NFC. And
Saints Vikings is NFC. Yeah, it's fair. And when we were in LA and we were at the press conference with announcing the international series, it was indicated that they were working to make sure it was AFC versus NFC for those particular games, and the similar scenario with Munich. So, look, I suppose at that stage, would they have started working on the schedule? Maybe the logistics and the strategic plan that comes with putting a schedule together just didn't work for that scenario to come to fruition. So I actually think it was the Chiefs going against the Bucs, but that's when it was Brady retired, and they needed to have a big name such as Mahomes going over. Obviously, and I joked on the show, would Brady come back? Not necessarily because he wants to be part of the team going to play in Germany, but I'm sure he is excited about the fact that he gets to go play in Munich. So I think when Brady came back and that was rubber stamped, I think maybe they looked at it from a different point of view. As they've got Brady, he's a big name, he's going to be over there. That'll take up all the media. Can you imagine the media attention over there if it was Mahomes and Brady? I mean, that's Super Bowl-esque type.
Jesus wept. Right? I mean, like, it would be nuts. It would be.
And it's going to be nuts anyway, because it's the first ever game in Germany. It's going to be absolute chaos. So the fact that you've got Brady there, that's enough. And I think the NFL would have went, let's hold our horse here, we'll send the Chiefs in a couple of years' time. I really, honestly, I'd imagine, judging by what you're saying, it is Seattle. It seems to have a lot of merits. And, Pete Carroll has always been very open on social media in terms of any Seahawks calm stuff that goes out around him, talking in German and influencing stuff when players who are from the international program are going to Seattle. So they seem to be very supportive of the game overseas. So it makes sense for it to be Seattle. And it'll be a decent enough game.
You can get your predictions in if you want, folks. That's our predictions for the games in London and Munich. Mexico. I wish the Mexicans lads were, I wish we were like the Mexicans, because this game leaks every year. Like, Jesus, every year this leaks. I seen earlier on 4 lads in a cafe in Mexico City wearing San Francisco 49ers tops were at an official draft party, and they were all told the 21st November they're playing the Cardinals in Mexico City in the Azteca. So is there any point in debating this, or are we just?
Well, I think it's been a given for whatever with the opponent. The date was set in stone because that's a Mexican bank holiday on that Monday, and it was obviously a huge date in the calendar. And it's been earmarked for quite some time that it would make sense to have the game on the day of their bank holiday, and they all get to celebrate the day and enjoy the game that night in Mexico. I always felt it'd be a divisional game as well. It was just a case of who they picked out. So it seems it's indicating towards the 49ers, and that's a decent Monday night game, isn't it? Like Cards and 49ers. It wouldn't be the first time. I believe the Raiders played the Chargers there a couple of years ago.
That was the first Mexico game as well. The Cardinals.
That was on a Monday night as well. So look, it'll make for a great game.
Column, Este de la Loca. Are we heading to Mexico? What's the plans?
Well, as somebody who is an enormous fan of Mexican beer and Mexican food, I would absolutely love it. I will volunteer to be the correspondent on the ground for the Irish NFL show in the Azteca, and I definitely happy to take that one, lads. And I imagine
I'll come, but I'll veer off towards Cancun and enjoy myself there.
I think that's like saying, like, landing in Belfast and saying that you're going to go to Cork. Like, I genuinely think it's that far away. I don't know. I'll find out and see the crack. And we all know there's no straight road to Cork from Belfast, which we'll talk about on another episode of this podcast. Just when Colin said that about credentials, look, can we just thank Justin and his team, Joseph, for the access, the help in Vegas last week, talking to Jordan Davis. Who else did he talk to? Jordan Davis and Chris Olave. And just thank Mark as well for the graphics, Mark Hogan, on the live show. It really helped us, especially when the show ended at 5 o'clock and we had to go to work. I had to go to work the next day. So really appreciate that, folks. And just thank everyone over the last few days. It's been a great few days. And there is a giveaway on our account. If you check out the pinned tweet, you have a chance to win some Trust Gaming gear, an NFL draft cap of your choice, and also 2 tickets to Nebraska against Northwestern this August in Dublin. That closes tomorrow night at 10 p.m. after, I would call it the Champions League, but is there much point because the game's over? We'll be back on Wednesday night after the Champions League to talk about the London games. Everyone looking forward to that?
Yeah, we can basically talk about the games we just pretty much compared. No, look, it'd be good to get it locked down. It's probably more so about what date it's on, and so people can start making their plans, and we can start making our plans around what we're going to be doing when we're over there.
Indeed. Folks, thanks very much for watching tonight. Really appreciate you. I've got no fancy end screen, so we're just going to wave and say good night. It's long fun.